The wind howled through the canyon like a dying beast, dragging dust and memory with it. Crows wheeled overhead, black against the washed-out sky. Below, a single rider moved with quiet purpose, his coat flapping behind him like a banner of silence. His name was Cole Thatcher, and he hadn't spoken a full sentence in 3 years. He came from nowhere. At least that's what folks in the nearby town said when he passed through. No one knew where he was headed, and he never stayed long enough to be asked, but on that late spring morning, the hollow wind carried him to a place he didn't plan on finding. The town of Dryhook was barely more than a handful of leaning buildings and a well choked with sand. The saloon was closed more often than open. The sheriff's office had one window and no lawman. Most folks had moved on or disappeared. But Cole hadn't come for people. He came for a name he'd found scribbled on a letter buried at the bottom of a burned saddlebag. Mira Ellison, Dryhook, New Mexico Territory. He found her, or rather, she found him. It was just after dusk when she stepped out of the shadows behind the old chapel, rifle in hand. Her hair was tied back in a rough braid, dark as smoke. Her eyes were sharper than the edge of the moon. "You lost?" she asked, voiced low and steady. "No," Cole said, "but maybe I should be. You ain't from here. Neither are you," he replied. That earned him a pause. Then she lowered the rifle a fraction, not out of trust, but calculation. "You look like a man with a ghost on his back." Cole's lips twitched. "Only one." She looked at him a long time before speaking again. "I'm Mira," he nodded. "Cole." They said nothing more that night. She turned and walked toward a small cabin near the dry riverbed. He followed, slow and cautious. The porch creaked beneath his boots like it hadn't borne weight in years. Inside, it smelled of dust, gun oil, and dried sage. She poured black coffee without asking and handed him a tin cup. "You come for the boy?" she asked. Cole looked up, surprised. "What boy?" She studied him. "Then why are you really here?" He set the cup down. "I came for a name. Yours." Later that night, when the wind curled under the door like an unwelcome guest, Mira told him the story. 2 months back, a stagecoach had been ambushed 15 miles north of Dryhook. Everyone on board died except for a child, found barely breathing beneath the wreckage. Mira had stumbled across the boy while tracking a coyote that had taken one of her hens. His leg was shattered and his chest covered in bruises. She brought him back, nursed him with what little she had. He never spoke, but he never cried either. "In the back room," she said. "Sleeping, I hope." "What's his name?" Cole asked. "I don't know. He hasn't said a word." Cole rose slowly. The floorboards groaned under his step. He paused at the doorway to the room. A small figure lay curled under a quilt, face turned to the wall. The kind of silence that clung to the boy wasn't born of Sheena Sit, was the kind that only blood could teach. Cole stepped back and closed the door gently. "You expect someone to come for him, Mira's?" Expression darkened. "I expect something." 2 nights later, they came. At first, it was just the wind, rising sudden and sharp. Then, the dust. Then the sound low thunder, not from the sky, but the ground. Cole was on the porch when he saw them. Riders, a dozen, maybe more. Silhouettes against the blue-black dusk. No banners, no lanterns, just movement, deliberate, silent, unforgiving. Joined him. Her rifle was already loaded. She didn't ask if he was ready. They stopped just beyond the edge of the yard. One man dismounted. He was tall, with silver beads in his braids and a face carved by weather and war. He stepped forward with the kind of stillness that made wolves pause. "You have the boy," he said in clipped English. "We have a boy," Mira replied. "He is mine." Cole studied the man. There was no doubt in his posture, no negotiation in his voice, but there was something else, grief, maybe, or pride, sharpened into desperation. "Prove it," Cole said. The man raised his hand, and behind him, another rider approached, holding something wrapped in leather. A blanket. Inside, a carved wooden talisman valve and flame intertwined. Mira's breath caught. "The boy had this," she murmured. "He clutched it like a lifeline when I found him." The man's eyes flicked to her. "My son was taken. During a raid. He was not supposed to be there. He is all I have left." Silence fell. Cole looked toward the cabin, then toward the dust-covered riders, each one carrying the quiet weight of violence. "If you're lying," he said, "you don't leave here. I'm not." Mira lowered her rifle a hair. "Let me get him." She stepped inside. Minutes passed like years when she returned. The boy was in her arms, awake now, clinging to her shirt. His eyes scanned the figures outside, then landed on the man standing alone. His breath hitched. "Papa," he whispered. The man stepped forward slowly, Dropping to one knee, Mira knelt and set the boy down. He ran awkward with a splint on his leg, but he didn't fall. The man caught him, crushed him to his chest. He said nothing, just held him. The other riders began to dismount, still silent, but this time there was no threat in their movement. They circled loosely, waiting. The man, his name, they learned, was Tovistud with his son, and nodded once to Cole and Mira. "You saved him," he said, "and for that I owe you more than I can pay." Cole shook his head. "Just keep him." Safe, Tovi mounted his horse, pulling the boy up in front of him. Before riding off, he turned once more. "The ones who attacked the coach white men, not ours. Bandits, who wear lawmen's badges, they're still out there, and they'll come looking for what they missed." With that, they vanished into the darkness. Mira stood still for a long time after they left. "You believe him?" Cole asked. She nodded. "Yeah." He looked down the road, the way they came. "Then we've got more trouble coming," she turned to him. Cole met her eyes. "You took in a stranger. I drank your coffee. That makes us family in the West." She smiled, just a flicker, quick and sharp. "Then we better get ready, family." The wind rose again, but this time it didn't sound hollow. By morning, the boy was gone, carried away on horseback with his people, vanished into the desert like they'd never been. But the dust they stirred hadn't settled, not in the air, and not in Mira's bones. Cole sat on the porch, sharpening a hunting knife, the rhythmic scrape of steel on stone the only sound in the stillness. Mira was up before dawn, reinforcing window shutters and checking the latches on the back door. "They'll come, won't they?" she said. Cole nodded. "If what Tovi said is true, bonnets and lawmen's coats, they won't like leaving unfinished business." Mira pulled her braid tighter. "Then we don't give them the chance to finish it." Shallow pits near the tree line, trip lines threaded through scrub oak, broken glass hidden beneath soft sand in front of the porch. Mira taught Cole how to notch the rafters, to drop powder if a fire was lit. Cole showed Mira how to make a scatter, load from nails and buckshot. They didn't speak much while they worked, but the silence between them had changed. It was no longer wary. It was the sound of people preparing for war, people who knew how to bleed and how to keep going anyway. When they finished, they sat beneath the broken eaves, watching the moon rise. It was full too bright for comfort. "How'd you know I wasn't here to hurt you?" Cole asked. Mira shrugged. "Didn't? But you didn't flinch when I aimed at you. Most men get real polite or real stupid. You just looked tired." "I was, still are." He smiled faintly. "You always been out here alone?" "No, not always." Her voice dropped a register. "I had a sister, Leah. She married a trader from Santa Fe. Took a wagon west. We were supposed to meet in Tombstone in the spring. That was 3 years ago. She never made it. No one did. Her whole party disappeared somewhere past the Rio Gato crossing. No sign, no survivors." Mira looked away. "That's when I came to Dryhook. Figured if the world was going to forget people, I might as well disappear with them." Cole stared at the fire. "I had a brother," he said. "Younger by 3 years. Smart. Funny. Could read Latin. He enlisted first, said it'd be over by Christmas. He came back with one arm and eyes that didn't see anything but mud and smoke. Mira waited. He hung himself in my barn." The fire cracked. "They buried him with a flag," Cole said. "Like that would keep the ghosts out." Mira reached for the whiskey bottle between them, to the ones who never came back. Cole clinked his tin cup to hers, and the ones who wished they hadn't. 3 days passed, each one quieter than the last. No riders, no strangers, just wind, vultures, and the long ache of waiting, until the 4th day, just before noon. A single rider appeared on the ridge dust-covered, tall in the saddle, rifle slung low. He didn't carry a badge, but he wore the stance of a man who thought he didn't need one. Mira watched from the window, Colt in hand. He's alone. No man rides out here alone unless he's sure he doesn't need help. Cole muttered. The rider stopped 20 paces from the cabin, raised a hand. In mock greeting, "Afternoon," he called, "Fine weather." Cole stepped onto the porch, hand resting near the revolver on his belt. "That depends," the man smiled. His teeth were too white for honesty. "Name's Bram Keen. I hear tell you might be sheltering something that doesn't belong to you." Cole didn't blink. "And what might that be?" "A boy half-breed. Seen heading east with Comanche riders. Rumor says he stopped here. Rumor's a dangerous thing. Not as dangerous as lying to the wrong man." Mira stepped out beside Cole. "You're not wearing a badge, Mr. Keen?" "I wear what I need to, ma'am." Cole squinted. "Funny thing, we heard it wasn't Comanche that hit the stage. Heard it was mercs, hired guns playing law. Like a man named Keen." The smile disappeared. You're making yourself a problem. Cole stepped down one step. You rode out here with that smirk, but no backup. Makes me think you ain't as sure as you want us to believe. Bram Keen's hand twitched toward his belt. Cole's didn't move. Try it, Mira said softly. I'd love an excuse. The wind shifted. Keen reconsidered. He tipped his hat. We'll be back by sundown. With friends, and he rode off without looking back. Cole and Mira didn't speak for a long time after. They just moved. Ammo was counted. Water filled. Final boards nailed across the lower windows. They set the old barn ablaze to keep visibility open. Poured a line of lamp oil along the fence to light. If things turned ugly, Mira sat sharpening her blade, while Cole checked the sight on the Spencer repeater. You ever kill a man? Without looking up. Not on purpose, she said. But I won't make that mistake again. Sundown came like a funeral bell. With it came the riders. Not 12, not 20, 43 mounted men. Scent of blood and confidence. They didn't yell, didn't shoot. They just formed a crescent arc around the cabin, silent and still. At their head was Keen again. This time he wasn't smiling. You had your warning, he called. Cole stepped forward, rifle slung low. So did you. Raised his hand. The first shot came from the trees. Mira dropped the shooter with a single round gut shot. Clean, the others opened fire. Thunder roared across the flat land. Bullets cracked and split the porch posts, shattered window panes, carved scars into the cabin's weathered walls. Cole moved like a machine gun, focused, brutal. Every shot a name, every round a memory. Mira ducked low behind the side window, picking targets one by one. She wasn't fast. She was accurate. When the first firebomb landed, Cole grabbed the pail and doused it before the porch caught. But the second came through the side window, setting the curtain ablaze. Smoke filled the cabin. Back room, Mira choked. They dropped, behind the bed frame, listening, reloading, waiting, and then Nit changed. A sound in the distance. A new sound. Hooves. Dozens. Cole frowned. You hear that? Mira nodded. That ain't them. Through the smoke came the riders, but not Keen's. Tuvai, and 50 Comanche warriors, riding like the wind, was chasing them. Not to attack the cabin, but to surround it. Keen's men didn't stand a chance. Some tried to run. They were run down. Some tried to fight. They were swallowed. Mira opened the door just in time to see Keen tackled from his horse and dragged to the dust. His gun was gone. His smirk. Tovi approached, still mounted. I told you they would come. Cole stepped outside, coughing. I didn't expect you'd come back. You saved my son. That don't always earn return. Favors Tovi's expression didn't change. It did this time. They burned the bodies. The Comanche left at dawn, swift and silent. Keen was left alive, tied to a post with a knife just out of reach. A decision left for the desert. Cole and Mira watched the sun rise from the roof. You thinking of staying? She asked. He took a long time to answer. Yeah, he said finally. I think I am. A week passed, maybe more. The land began to breathe again. The sky softened, the dust settled. Coyotes returned to the edges of the hills, and hawks drifted over the canyons like they always had. Loof eternal. The grave markers behind the cabin's simple wooden crosses without names stood quiet. Mira added one more to the line. Not for a man, she mourned, but to remember the line they'd drawn in the dirt and held. Cole never asked what she whispered over the cross. She never asked why he watched the sunrise each morning like it owed him something. They didn't need words, not anymore. The town of Dry Hook began to stir as well. What little remained of it, anyway. Word traveled faster than horses out here, and by the end of the second week, people started showing up. First, a trader from San Alvo, who heard there was safety near the river bend. Then a widow and her boy, walking on blistered feet. Then two brothers in a rusted cart pulled by a mule too old to die. Each one brought a story and a scar. Each one came looking for a place to begin again. Cole watched them arrive with a wary eye. Mira, meanwhile, set up a crude water line using copper pipe and a barrel they scavenged from the old barn ruins. She showed a 10-year-old how to tend a stove fire without singeing his eyebrows. She didn't smile much, but people trusted her. Anyway, she didn't look like hope. She looked like someone who had survived worse. Think we're building something? Cole asked one evening, leaning against the split-rail fence. Mira wiped her hands on a flour-stained cloth. Feels like it. That scare you? Everything scares me. That's how I know I'm alive. He nodded slowly. You think they'll come back? She didn't need to ask who. Keen's kind never goes extinct. They just change names, grow new teeth. Cole stared off toward the distant hills. Then we stay sharp. One night, a new rider came. She was tall, lean, wrapped in a faded military coat too big for her shoulders. Her hat was pulled low, and the horse beneath her was gaunt but proud. Growing Camp and Dismo Unted. Mira met her halfway, hand near her sidearm. "You lost?" she asked. The woman looked up, one green eye, the other clouded white. A long scar ran from jaw to temple. "Depends," she said, on whether this place keeps the kind of secrets I'm used to." Mira hesitated. "Depends what kind you're carrying." The woman cracked the barest smile. "Good answer." She gave her name as Casno surname and said nothing else that night. But she stayed, took up residence in a collapsed tool shed, reinforced it with logs, and slept with a rifle across her chest. Children avoided her. Dogs didn't bark. Cole kept an eye on her for 3 days straight before deciding she wasn't here to cause trouble, just to wait for it. It was Cass who spotted the scouts first. 3 figures on the ridge, too far for detail, but they moved wrong too tight. To practiced, not traitors, not survivors. "Military," Cass said flatly. "How sure?" Cole asked. She tilted her head. Salt pork was running out. Powder was decent, but Mira's traps had been disabled to make room for crops. They weren't fortified anymore. They were vulnerable. "We need to move them," he said, gesturing at the cluster of newcomers. "Where?" Mira asked. "There's nothing out there but dry land and regret. Somewhere less obvious, we're a target now." She shook her head. "This isn't a fortress, Cole. It's a beginning, and beginnings get buried real fast if we don't make it a fortress." Cass spoke from the shadows. "If those scouts report back, you'll have 2 weeks at most, maybe less if the general has a grudge." Mira turned to her. "You know who's coming. Name's Colonel Royce Trent, Union badge. Hired out west after the war to secure the frontiers. Real polite term for clearing out what the railroad didn't want." "And he's coming here?" Mira asked. Cass met her gaze. The choice wasn't easy, but it was clear they had to hold Dryhook, not for pride, but for the people who believed in it. The ones who were just starting to sleep through the night again. The ones planting seeds in bad soil just because it gave them something to hope for. So they dug trenches, rebuilt the watchtowers, and when Mira pulled out her father's old war maps, Cole didn't ask why she'd kept them. He just started marking ranges. The next 10 days moved like gunpowder through a fuse. Every child was taught how to hide. Every woman learned to load. Every man was given a choice, fight or leave. None left. Cole trained a group of boys on an old target line using a busted wagon wheel and rusted nails. Cass taught them how to strike, quietly, how to cut rope and disable powder kegs. Mira organized watches in 3 shifts, broke out the ration, stores, and sent runners to the Comanche camps just in case Tovey was still listening. By the end of the 2nd week, Dryhook didn't look like a town. It looked like a scar with teeth. They came at dawn, not with banners, not with warnings, just thunder and smoke and the glint of polished rifles. Union blues, stripped of honor, moving in formation, like ghosts wearing old uniforms. Royce Trent Road at the frontal, bellowed from his horse, is under federal reclamation. You have until sunset to evacuate. Cole stood on the main road, hat down, repeater in hand. "This land was never yours," he replied. Royce's lip curled. "Everything west of the Mississippi belongs to someone now, and I have the documents to prove it." Mira stepped beside. "Cole, you think paper makes you right. I think bullets make me unopposed." Behind him, 50 men readied rifles. Cole cocked his. "Then we'll oppose." The first shot was a warning. The second was war. They didn't hold the line. They bent it, let the soldiers push too far in, then collapsed from both flanks. Cass's fire team flanked left. Cole's held the well. Mira moved like shadow between cover and flame dot by mid-morning. The field was smoke. By noon, the advance stalled, and then the Comanche came, from the hills, from the riverbed, silent until the last moment. Tovey rode at their head again, his war cry sharp and unforgiving. Royce didn't expect that. He never saw the spear that unseated him. When it was over, the dead were buried. The wounded, treated. Royce Trent disappeared into the ravine. Never found Dryhook held, but at a cost. That night, Mira stood atop the church roof, wrapped tight with linen and pain. "Think they'll come again?" he asked. She didn't answer for a long time. "I hope not," she said finally. "But if they do, we won't run." "No," Cole said, "we won't." And in the ashes of everything they'd built, they sat in silence, to people who had chosen not to disappear, to people who had drawn a line and held it, and below them, Dryhook breathed on. Summer came late that year. The rains didn't fall, but the wildflowers still bloomed scrappy and stubborn, pushing through dust and gravel like they had something to prove. Dryhook was no longer a ghost town. Children played where bullets once flew. Women planted gardens near the graves. The wind still whispered, but now it carried laughter, as often as it carried warning. Cole sat beneath the leaning cottonwood near the south ridge, watching a hawk circle lazily above. His ribs ached when he breathed too deep. The pain didn't bother him anymore. It was the proof he'd survived something. Mira approached, with 2 tin cups. One held black coffee, the other held water steeped with crushed sage and honey. They said nothing for a while. The silence between them had become something holy, shared, earned, down in the valley. New tents were being raised. Traders had begun stopping again, first in fear, then in curiosity, now in hope. A blacksmith had arrived with his pregnant wife and a forge the size of a wagon bed. A young couple had come from Colorado with books and a dream to start a school. Cass had taken to sleeping in the old sheriff's office and refused to wear a star. Still, people listened when she spoke. The town wasn't safe, but it was alive. Mira traced her finger along the rim of her tin cup. "You ever think about leaving?" she asked. "Every day. You ever mean it?" Cole shook his head. "No, not anymore." She nodded. "Good. I'd hate to have to track you down." He gave her a sidelong glance. "You think you could? I tracked you once. That was different. I left a trail on purpose." She raised a brow. "Would you do that again?" Cole didn't answer immediately. "If I thought someone might come looking." One afternoon, a rider came bearing news the East had heard of Dryhook. A paper out of St. Louis had printed a story. The town that stood. The words were embellished. Names were wrong. But the heart of it was there. People had fought. People had stayed. And they'd won. With the story came attention. Letters from territories and old soldiers. Offers of supplies. Of protection. Of press. Mira. Read the letters aloud at the saloon now, converted into a town hall with rickety benches and a crooked flag. When she finished, a voice from the back asked, "What now?" Mira looked around the room. "I say we finish what we started." And so they did. They raised real walls, dug deeper wells. Cass trained 5 others to scout and track. Cole taught the older boys how to shoot under pressure, how to breathe through fear. Mira, without announcing it, became the heart of the town. She had a way of listening that made people tell her the truth. And when she spoke, even the wind leaned in. One night, the town gathered for a harvest fire. Someone brought a fiddle. Someone else a jug of something too strong to name. The children danced in bare feet. The adults watched like it was a miracle. Cole stood near the edge of the firelight, hands in his coat pockets. Mira stepped beside him, holding 2 cups. This time, they both drank the coffee. "You know what this feels like?" she asked. "Almost peaceful." "Almost," she echoed. They clinked cups and watched the sparks rise like prayers. But peace is a hard thing in the West. One day a group of riders appeared on the horizon. Not bandits, not soldiers, surveyors, railroad men, slick boots, clean coats, gold watches ticking like promises. Cole met them at the edge of town. "We're not for sale," he said. A man with a silk vest smiled. "Everything's for sale. It's just a matter of price." Mira joined him. Her rifle was slung across her back. She didn't threaten. She didn't have to. "We've buried better men than you," she said. That was the end of the conversation. Men left for now. A month passed. Then to no one returned. But Cole knew the game. He'd played it once before, long ago, when his brother still had both arms and dreams that hadn't turned to ash. "They'll come back," he said one night, as Mira patched a boy's torn shirt. "Then we'll meet them. They won't come with guns, not at first. They'll come with lawyers and deeds, maps that say this land isn't ours." Mira didn't look up. "Then we remind them of what? That this land doesn't forget the blood it drinks." It was Cole who came up with the idea. A pact, written by hand, signed by every person in town, witnessed by Tovy's people and Cass herself. It claimed Dryhook, not for a company or a territory, but for its people, a free township, an unclaimed square of grit and memory and will. They buried 1 copy beneath the chapel. Mira kept the other in a tin box beneath her floorboards. "Think it'll hold?" she asked. "No," Cole said, "but it'll make it harder to erase us." The seasons turned again. Winter came slower this time. Gentle. Cole and Mira stood together at the edge of the ridge, watching the sun set behind the valley. "I've been thinking," she said. "That's dangerous." She ignored him about starting a schoolhouse. Just one room, nothing fancy. You'd be good at that. She looked over. You think, I've seen the way they look at you, like you're the reason they get to wake up without running. Mira exhaled, and Cole didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small carved figure. A hawk, wings outstretched, whittled from the root of the old cottonwood that had fallen last spring. For you, he said. She turned it over in her hands. It's beautiful. I figured you'd keep it safe. Mira tucked it into her coat. I will. The wind stirred, soft, almost kind. That night, thunder rolled somewhere far to the east, but it didn't reach Dryhook. Not yet, and maybe not, ever. Because in a land that forgets everything, there was finally a place that remembered. A place held by calloused hands and stubborn hearts. A place where silence had been broken. And in its place, something better had been born. Not peace, but belonging. And in the West, that was enough.